Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Executive After Hours, a leadership perspective. All right. So quickly, just want to talk about my book, The Crucible's Gift, 5 Lessons from Authentic Leaders Who Thrive in Adversity. You can see all the tabs I have here. So when I'm doing interviews, I can flip to a page to talk about something specifically. For those who have bought it, they've loved it. And again, it's been reviewed and recommended by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, Bill George, Jeffrey Hazlett, Dory Clark, John Berghoff. All pretty impactful leaders in their own space. But if you're unsure, you can get it on Amazon and you can get it on Kindle. But if you're unsure, head over to my website, drjameskelly.com. That's drjameskelly.com. And click on the Crucible's Gift at the top there. And you can get your own free introduction chapter. You can test drive the book. And if you like it, then head over onto Amazon. The other thing I want to quickly do, and I don't normally do this, is talk about this book called Conversations Worth Having by Jackie Stavros and Sherry Torres. So when I was at my Appreciative Inquiry seminar that I did a few weeks back, Jackie was there and she handed out this book. And I started reading it at night. And the first thing that stood out to me is how easy it is to understand. And here's what the book is about. It's about creating conversations that result in positive impact on those around you. And in an organization, it's figuring out how can I ask my team or the individuals the right questions to move us in the right direction, in the positive direction, to have a positive impact not only on the culture, but on the bottom line. Super easy to read, great examples, and you could apply it the next day. So go grab that book, and please go grab my book. Okay, let's shift to today's topic. All right, this is the third time I've done this take because I'm trying to find a way to do this in a more succinct manner, so we'll try it again. Here's the title of today's topic, and I was really excited about it when I found it online. An investigation of authentic leadership's individual and group influences on follower responses by Carol Gill and Arran Caza in the Journal of Management 2018. Journal of Management is like the top tier management journal. So I was really excited about this article, and I was excited about possibly the content, the way they did it, and kind of the significant impact they may have in this space. So let me tell you the main research question they have. The main research question is really broken down into two. The first question is, does an authentic leader have an impact on a follower? So we've talked about this before, but they look at 4 specific outcomes, and I'll share with you in a second. But the second question, the one that was really more interesting for me, was, does an authentic leader have an indirect impact on the follower group or on the group in itself? And if we think about this idea of leader-follower, a leader, authentic leader, is going to relate to each follower slightly different because we as followers have different needs that we want from our leader, whether it's a level of honesty, a level of relationship, a level of transparency. So we're all a little bit different in that. And so we'll all relate to and rate the authentic leader slightly different from one another. I think that's human nature. So this is what they're trying to look at. And the 4 main outcomes they were trying to research between the individual and the group level was the idea of identification, right? Do I identify with the leader? The idea of trustworthiness. Do I trust the leader? And this is broken down into 3 different levels, but I'm not going to get into that. The idea of positive state. So do I have a positive state when I'm with and around and interacting with the leader and in that environment? Now, positive state is really wrapped up into this idea of psychological capital. So let me read you the definition of psychological capital. It is defined as the positive and developmental state of an individual as characterized by high self-efficacy, optimism, hope, and resilience. So these are all positive states. So you have these psychological capital. And the last one is positive social exchange, so positive interaction. All right. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky, and I'm going to do my best to simplify this. They had to first kind of justify how they measured the group. Historically, research has not done a great job trying to do individual and group level at the same time. From a measurement perspective, from an operationalization perspective, it's a little bit complex when you look at these smaller groups, and I'll tell you the size in a second. So what they said is that when we look at the group, we want to look at groups based on the idea of social identification. We identify with each other. Social learning, where we can learn by observation how to behave, how to act in a group. So does an authentic leader's actions, behaviors, words impact the way we learn and change our behavior? And finally, they wanted to look at the idea of social contagion. So the non-conscious influence that might occur, the multiplication effect, by behaving more authentically. All right. Here's where it's going to get a little bit complicated, so I'm hoping I can explain it to you. But the way they did this is they looked at 31 leaders, or authentic leaders, and they looked at 104 followers of those leaders. So that 104 is broken up between the 34 across the groups. And they used what's called an additive composition model. The only way I can explain this, and I tried to do research on this to find out how to explain it a little bit better and clearer for you, is that typically in research, in this particular project, they use a bunch of different models, regression models. Now, regression is simply an if-then statement. So if the follower sees the authentic leader as trustworthiness, then I see them as an authentic leader. So if a follower sees their leader as trustworthiness, then they see the leader as authentic. So if-then. If it's cold outside, then I put gloves on my hands. Right? So it's an if-then statement, and it's a predictive statement. Okay, so they looked at this from the group level, and they looked at this from the individual level, and they used the group methodological tool called additive composition model. And what that means is that they took the average scores of the group, and they recalculated it for the individual. And I'm not going to get into the nuances of this because it's slightly confusing, but what they tried to do is come up with two different scores. So an individual score and a group score, so they could measure these individually on an authentic leader and the impact it might have. So they did this, and they did this on the 4 outcomes: identification, trustworthiness, positive state, and positive social exchange. And what they found is that, and I would expect this, that if a follower sees an authentic leader and as an authentic leader, then they are positively related to. So if a follower sees someone as being authentic, they identify with them, they see them trustworthy, they have a positive state, remember psychological capital, and they have positive social exchanges. That makes sense. But at the group level, it was only 2 of those factors. It was trustworthiness. So as a group, they see the authentic leader as more trustworthy, and as a group, they see the authentic leader as fostering this idea of positive social exchange. And not to get really, really in the weeds, but when you start looking at the data, it doesn't really make sense to me. When you start looking at the numbers they attach to the results, there's something else going on in the data. And so it ended up being one of the major limitations that I saw in this particular study. Now, does it pass the sniff test on the value of if-then statements? Like, if a follower sees an authentic leader, sees someone being an authentic leader, would that impact the people around them? I kind of think, yeah. I think that would make sense, especially because we're not talking about groups of 50, 60, 70, 80. We're talking about groups probably more like 10 to 12. That's probably on the big side in this sample. So 10 followers to 1 leader. I think to me that would make sense. If you see someone who's authentic and you aspire to be like that, you start taking on some of their traits, then those values will be espoused through that mini culture. So it does pass the sniff test, but the results in terms of the numbers that they came up with don't. And I'm not going to get into the weeds why, but I can tell you that some of the numbers they came up with don't typically happen in data and stats. Because it just some of the results were like unity, like there was no difference between them. So anyhow, getting too much in the weeds. So it kind of calls into question some of the results. Here's what I would have loved to have seen in this research. Instead of taking the individual members and the group members part of one team, measure the individual in a cross-functional committee, cross-functional team in an organization, and see if that has an impact on that team. Because now you're removing the follower from their other follower groups, and you're putting them into another group that may have a different leader that doesn't espouse the authentic leadership values. And does that follower then impact that group? And that, to me, would be really interesting in this research. So to kind of summarize, this particular research project does pass the sniff test in terms of the formulation, the theory build, the questions they're trying to ask and answer, but the results kind of fall flat to me, especially at the group level, because just the numbers don't make sense. right? I'm no whiz kid when it comes to these numbers, but I know enough to know when something doesn't smell right when you see it. So, all right, that's it for this week in this article. Hopefully that made sense to you. I did this in a full 3 minutes faster. So, all right, go to YouTube, subscribe, like this, share this, buy the book, go to drjameskelly.com, and have an awesome week. And I will see you all later. Next week, I'm actually going to dissect my model for my book so that you guys kind of can see what that is all about as well. All right, till then, see you later. Ciao.
Just believe it, believe in it. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Just believe it.
What are you doing? Yeah, hi. Back again. So listen, where'd it go? I got this book. You guys really need to go buy it. You need to support me so that I can come speak to you about the book at your work. Or, better idea, there's a 3-hour seminar that I'm putting together about adversity and leadership. Book that. That could be fun, right? 3 hours? Using the power of the question to get you and the group, the organization, to better realize a positive future. All right, I'm gonna go now.